help women learn how their body works so they can actually stand up in difficult situations for what they believe is right. You know, one of the things that gets in the way of a lot of women is this feeling that their body is holding them back from doing the things that they want to do. And their body is holding them back either because of pain or illness, or it's holding them back because it feels so heavy and stressed that it can hardly move. Maybe your body's holding you back by a nervous stomach, like I had for a long time. Your body can feel like it's your worst enemy. And because of that, our biggest challenge isn't that we don't know what's right, or we don't want to do what's right, or we don't do the thing that is meant for us to do. It's because we ourselves, some part of ourselves, is still needing some love and support. So when you start thinking about trauma, and you start thinking about relationships and narcissist relationships, you have to look first and foremost at all the different things which are affecting the situation. Because you know, if you could be a better person, you know, if you could be someone that could stand up to bullies and chase them away and get what you wanted all the time, then you wouldn't feel so conflicted inside of yourself. You wouldn't feel maybe so scared or anxious or angry the way that we do when we've been through really hard situations. So it's important to start getting beyond ourselves, beyond us thinking that we're the cause of everything going on around us, and instead recognize there's a lot more going on. It isn't just our reaction inside of ourselves. It isn't just because today we said the wrong thing or we didn't think fast enough. There's actually an underlying flow underneath existence, underneath reality, and even in your relationships, even in your toxic, difficult, painful relationships, there's a flow. And when you start to realize, when you start to tap into what that flow is of what's going on around you, then you are able to reassure the scared part of you that keeps you held back. You're able to reassure that part of you. And with that reassurance, it gets love, it gets care, and you can start to really step up into the world like you're meant to. So one of the things I pay attention to is astrology. For the longest time, you know, astrology, like for me, like for everybody, was something neat that you read in the newspaper, and maybe it applied and maybe it didn't. Things started to change when I started to meet more psychics. I've got a storefront that's a women's center. It's a women's center in my therapy center. And before the pandemic, we would do events and classes. And one of the more popular things was when we would have a psychic come, and the psychic would do a salon. And it was really dynamic. I was surprised. And because of that, because I started to open up my mind to that there was more going on in the world than just, you know, my blinders. Because of that, I started to get to know a few more psychics, and they started to say things which, you know, were just in alignment, just seemed to fit me perfectly. So before the year started, I had been, one of my clients was an astrologer, and she was a really great astrologer. And she'd been doing it for a long time, and she loved it. She was the sort of person that was choosing her next job based on the astrological location charts for where she was going. For everyone she would meet, she would find out their birthday and read their chart to find out a little bit more about them. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting and fun. And then at the beginning of the year, I decided to do a trade with someone who's a psychic, who's this great little Polish witch that lives in a gingerbread house in the woods, and I love her and she loves me. And we did a trade, and she did a reading for me. And in the reading, she says, you know what, you might want to get your chart done for this year. And this was like in January. And so I contacted my astrology client. I said, hey, would you do my chart for the year? She said, sure. And then I diligently put down all the dates that were important and put them on my calendar. And this is what I found out. I found out that when there were things in my calendar which were, warned of a direction going a little bit to the left or a direction going a little bit to the right, it 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 matched up with the chart. What was going on in my life was matching up with the little notes that I had put on my calendar. And I would look ahead, of course, because we want to see if we've got anything interesting coming up. And I'd look ahead and I'd say, oh, that's interesting. This is supposed to be coming up on Friday. I wonder what's going to happen. And lo and behold, it would ramp up. There would be the peak on Friday, and then it would come back down. And I was really amazed. And it got me thinking, there's an underlying flow to all of this, isn't there? There's an underlying understanding. Now, we might not know how or why the positions of the stars can predict the energies of the people around us and the energies of the situations we're in. I have no idea how that works. But what I have noticed is that when I got my chart done, and this whole year I've been doing it, there's that ebb and that flow around everything. And I started to be able to predict, because I'd look at something on my calendar and I'd say, oh, this is interesting. This is coming up. I wonder what it'll look like. I wonder how it'll manifest. I wonder how it'll unfold. And I would watch it. And as I would watch it, it would pretty much unfold that exact same way, from weird synchronicities to being spot on. And when you start recognizing there's an underlying flow to everything, then you start realizing that you can use the tools that are out there to help you understand what that flow is, to help you understand so that you can follow with the flow, so that you're not bucking it. You're not pushing against the flow because you think that it doesn't exist or it might not really work. You actually start to move with the harmony of the universe, not just the heavens and the stars, but the harmony of the energy of the people around you, the harmony of the situation in the moment. So when I started to look at my astrological chart that way, as a sign of what was going, I started to look for other things that would also tell me what the energies were, what the temperaments might be, what the situations might be. And I started to follow that. And I'd look into numerology, or I'd look for signs, or I'd trust, or I'd pray, or I'd do ceremony or ritual. And these answers would come, and the answers were always spot on about how to handle these things. When we start to recognize we're part of something way bigger than ourselves, we're part of an ecosystem, we're part of a big system that includes everything that exists. If you think that somehow you can buck everything that exists, you have a pretty big ego. It's much easier to start looking for what the flow is. And let me tell you a secret about brains and brainwave entrainment. Okay, you've all heard the stories of the clocks, the pendulum clocks in the study they did, and after a while, all the pendulum clocks would get into entrainment. They would all, move at the same time. You've heard about how women living together, or maybe you've experienced it in college or something else, where women their cycles started to go at the same time. They started to be in sync, in rhythm with each other. The key to a healthy and a happy life, and the key to loving someone who is giving you challenges, or being in a relationship with someone that's hurt you in a number of ways, when you start to recognize there's a flow, there's a tide, there's a cycle to things, and you can't figure it out by yourself. But what you do is that you look to all of these other studies, all of these other people who have their own brilliance, their own insight about how the world works. And when you do that, you put your life in flow, in alignment with what's going on. You're not pushing things away. You're not trying to impose your will on the universe. And you're not taking the rap for everything that might go wrong. You're not taking the blame and being trapped in that feeling of, this is all my fault. What did I do? How can I fix this? Because when we're in a difficult emotional relationship, what happens is our body goes inside, it contracts, and it thinks about the self. It thinks about me. How am I going to survive this? How am I going to get out of this alive? How am I going to figure this out? Me. And that's a form of being narcissistic as well. Fear, a reaction to fear, makes us more narcissistic. So if you're feeling fearful and alone and disconnected, that's not true. That's the lie. Because the truth is there are signs and symbols everywhere. And when you get yourself back to a good place, when you make yourself the priority to get into a good space, by going for a walk, by climbing a tree, by petting, a dog, by going to the spa. When you do those things first instead of last, you get a handle on what's going on and you're able to see the signs because your view isn't so deeply on yourself. Your view is on what's happening around you and what the flow is. And just like a surfer riding the wave who's looking for the tells, who sees what's coming, what's not coming, he's riding with the wave. He's riding the wave. That's what you want to do in your life. You want to ride the wave. And when you are able to get yourself out of the drama of the back and forth all the time, is this going to be a good day? Is this going to be a bad day? What do I need to do? How can I control this? What's going wrong? What should I do next? When we're trapped in that ego self, that fear, that so looking deeply inside of ourselves, or obsessing about someone else, thinking about the other person, we're missing the bare factual reality that the universe is supporting you and telling you what's happening and telling you what's going on. You need to believe it, and you need to find sources that know what they're talking about. If you find people who know what they're talking about, who've studied this for a while, who understand themselves, who've done their personal work, who've gone through the grind of dealing with their trauma, who have a natural psychic, astrological connection or attunement to this. When you find someone that you trust, or people that you trust, they can start to tell you how to ride that wave. They'll give you the good advice. They'll give you the insight. So don't just go to your snippet in your newspaper, although maybe start with that. Who knows? Maybe start following the patterns. It's like following Wall Street. People see patterns. And if you'll notice, things get a lot easier when you start going with the flow and in alignment with what's going on instead of based in that fear. So start looking for the signs. They're there from people who know what they're talking about, and let them guide you to whatever you need to do and how you need to do it. For me personally, I use the I Ching. The I Ching is my spiritual foundation because what it does is it's been polished over thousands of years as a wisdom for a good life. So I found the I Ching. You may find Buddhism. You may find your own personal code of honor. I don't know. But find one that works for you and find people you can trust, and let's get into rhythm with one another instead of being so adversarial. Okay, so that's my talk on narcissism and astrology. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I have to go. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. Bye. Oh, one more thing. If you like these videos, click like, because then you'll be able to follow them every day and get your little dose of happy reality. Okay? Bye.